Reading number 12, Demand and Supply Analysis. Concept number 1, we will start with an introduction to economics. So what is economics? It is the study of the use of scarce resources, that is resources which are not in abundance, that is limited, to satisfy unlimited human wants. And how do we satisfy human wants? Through production, distribution and consumption of various goods and services. Now, since human wants are unlimited, the demand for these goods and services are also going to be unlimited. But at the same time, the resources required to produce these goods and services are limited. So, how can these resources be used in such a way, in such a manner that maximum level of output can be achieved and human wants can be satisfied? This is the key subject matter of economics. Now, broadly speaking, economics can be classified into microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics is the study of decisions of consumers and businesses and the individual markets. This is the key word to be emphasized here. That is, in economics, we refer to an individual consumer or an individual firm. For example, individual consumers' demand. Now, on the other hand, in the case of macroeconomics, we study the economy as a whole. That is, aggregate economic quantities and prices. Now, what does it mean? That let's say in the economy, if there are three consumers, A, B and C, and if we study the quantity demanded by each of them all together, in that case we have added up their quantity demanded, that is, we have aggregated the economic quantities, and in that case we will consider it as a subject matter, as a topic to be discussed under macroeconomics. So example of subject matter to be discussed under macroeconomics is national income, national output, aggregate consumption, etc. So these terms or these topics we are going to discuss it in the later readings. In this reading particularly, we will be restricting our discussion to topics related to microeconomics only. Objective of microeconomics: to analyze the prices and quantities of individual goods and services. Now, this can be from the perspective of a consumer or a firm. So when we discuss about it from the point of consumer, then it is called theory of consumer or the consumer theory, which deals with consumption, that is, demand for goods and services by individuals. And what is their objective behind this consumption? They want to maximize their utility. What is utility? It is the level of satisfaction that consumers derive out of various of these goods and services. Alright, and when talking about firms, that is the theory of firms, it deals with supply of goods and services by firms. And what is the objective of the firms behind this, making this supply? They want to maximize their profits. Moving further, concept number 2, law of demand. Law of demand states that all else constant, the quantity demanded of a good is inversely related to its price. What does it mean? It means that if the price of a good goes up, then the quantity demanded for this good will come down. There is an inverse relationship. Or vice versa, we can say that if the price of a good goes down, then the demand for this particular good will go up. Now you may notice this phrase here, all else constant. Now it means that behind the demand for a good, there can be other factors apart from price that govern or affect the demand for that particular good. But for the purpose of defining this law, we have make an assumption that all those factors are constant, that is, they are not changing. Why this has to be done? In economics, we usually tend to make such kinds of assumption because if all such factors will change simultaneously, then it will not be possible to determine a relationship between any two particular variables. So when we are discussing the quantity demanded and the price, then we will allow only these two variables to change while keeping all other factors constant. Only in that case we will be able to find or conclude a relationship between these two factors. Now it is clear that apart from price, there are other factors that affect the demand of a good. So what are these factors? That is given by concept number 3, the demand function. So what is demand function? It is a mathematical representation of the relationship between quantity demanded and the factors affecting demand. So we can read it as quantity demanded for product X is a function of P of X, that is the price per unit of good X, I, that is consumer's income, and PY, that is price of some another good. Now what is the relationship between quantity and these three factors? Let us study them individually. The first one being quantity demanded and the price of this particular good X, and this quantity demanded is for X. Now just now we have read the law of demand in concept number 2, which states that there is an inverse relationship between quantity and price. So we can say that these two are inversely related. Fine. The next factor is consumer's income. There is a direct relationship between these two variables. When the income of the consumers go up, then the quantity demanded for a good is also likely to go up. So there is a direct relationship. Coming to the third one, quantity and price of Y. This quantity is for good X while the price given is for good Y. Now the relationship between these two variables will depend upon the nature of this product Y. What is this product Y? Now if this good Y is a substitute. Now what is a substitute? A very popular example that can be taken globally is the example of Coke and Pepsi. Now these two are cold drinks and these two are a substitute for each other. So now what is the relationship? Let us consider the quantity for Coke and the price of Pepsi. If the price of Pepsi goes up, then the quantity demanded for Coke will also go up. Now what is the logic behind this? When the price of Pepsi goes up, the demand for Pepsi will go down. Yes. As a result, the consumers will shift from Pepsi to Coke and consequently the demand for Coke will go up. Thus we can say that in case of substitute, there is a direct relationship between quantity and price. Now what if the commodity Y is not a substitute but a complement? Now what is a complement or a complementary good? We can take the example of car and petrol. So the nature of these two goods is such that if someone uses a car, he will also be using petrol. So we can say these two goods are complementary. Now, if the price of petrol goes up, then what is likely to be the effect on demand for cars? Naturally, the demand for cars will fall because the cost of running the car is going high. As a result, the demand for cars should go down. So we can see that there is an inverse relationship between the price of the complementary good and the quantity of the concerned good. So in this case, there will be a negative relationship. Now take a look at this example here. Now this is an example of demand function, how the demand function looks like. Well, if you are thinking about how this demand function has been derived, then I can only tell you that this can be derived using the Lagrange method, but that is beyond the scope of our curriculum. So we are not going into the derivation of this function, but what we really need to understand is what each of these terms here mean and how do we interpret this demand function. That is the key thing that we need to understand, and that is expected out of a CFA candidate. So let us try to interpret this demand function. The quantity demanded for product A is equal to 10,000. Now in this demand function, the first term is a constant. So what is this constant term indicating? This means that even if all the other terms in the demand function go zero, then also there will be some sort of demand for this product in the market, and that is going to be an estimated figure of 10,000. So this is the interpretation of this constant term, that if all other terms go zero, if those factors are not taken into consideration, then the quantity demanded for this product will be 10,000. Now, if these factors come into picture, then they are likely to have some impact on this demand. As a result, they will either add up the quantity or they will subtract some quantity. And after the addition and subtraction of all these, of the impact of all these factors, will give us some other quantity other than this 10,000. Okay. So I hope we are clear about this 10,000 figure. Coming to the next term, that is minus 2PA. Now this PA is obviously the price of the commodity A. Now what is the coefficient of this price? It is minus 2. How do we interpret this minus 2? Let us first consider this symbol only. This minus sign here, this minus sign indicate the inverse relationship between quantity and price. So wherever you see a negative sign in front of any term, then you can understand that this term or this factor is inversely related to quantity demanded. Okay. And what about 2? This 2 is actually a ratio. If you go by the derivation of this demand function, then you will see that in place of this constant term, you will find this ratio, that is change in Q by change in P. Now this is of course price of this particular product, and this is the quantity of this product A. So this ratio is actually being reflected by this number 2. You will be able to understand the use of this ratio once we get into the practicals. So I'll show you how we can use this ratio very shortly. Okay. Now moving on to the next term, that is plus 0.0004 I. Now what is this I? This is consumer's income. And how do we interpret this coefficient of I? This is positive. So we can understand the relationship between quantity demanded and income is positive. And then the number 0.004, this can again be interpreted in the same manner, that it is a ratio of change in quantity upon change in income. All right. Moving to the third term, plus 30 PB. Now what is this PB? This is the price of product B. Now can you guess whether this product B is a substitute or a complementary good? The answer is that B is a substitute of A. Now, how can you identify this? By this symbol. Since it is positive, it means that there is a direct relationship between price of B and quantity of A. And we have just seen here that in case of substitute, there is this direct relationship. Yes, so B is a substitute of A. And what does this 30 mean? Again, it is change in Q of A due to change in P of B. Now, you can remember these ratios by stating it as change in Q due to change in whatever be the factor. This will enable you to remember these ratios easily. Coming to the fourth term, that is minus 4PC. So again, this C, what is this product C? Whether it is a substitute or complement, that can be identified using this operator here, minus. So since this is a minus sign, that is an inverse, there is an inverse relationship between price of C and quantity of A. So that means it is a complementary good. And what does this 4 indicate? This 4 indicates that change in Q of A due to change in P of C. Now very shortly I will show you how these ratios can be utilized in solving problems. So that's it about demand function. Moving further, concept number 4, that is inverse demand function. Now we have seen that a typical format of a typical structure of demand function is like this. Q of X, that is quantity demanded of X, is equal to, the first term is a constant, yes, so we can write it as A, minus there is price of this particular commodity X, and before this price also there will be one coefficient, like in this example there was minus 2, yes, so here we can take it as B. So this is a typical structure of demand function. Now what is inverse demand function? We will call it an inverse demand function if the price is considered as a dependent variable. That means if price is taken on the left hand side of the equation, then we will call it an inverse demand function. So that is very simple. You just change the sides of this equation. How can we do that? You bring this BPX on the left hand side and the QDX will come on the right hand side. Yes, and solving it further, we will get, dividing both sides by B, we will get P of X is equal to A divided by B minus 1 divided by B into QDX. So this is going to be the structure of an inverse demand function. Now to clarify it further, let us take an example with the numericals so that you can understand it better. Let's say the demand function is Q dx is equal to 100, that is our constant, minus the coefficient of px. Now this is our demand function, and you have to convert it into an inverse demand function. So how can we do this? Simply just change the sides of P and Q. So we bring this 5px on the left hand side and we transfer this Q on the right hand side, and this way we can get P of x is equal to 100 divided by 5 gives us 20, and 1 divided by 5 will become 0.20 Q dx. So this is our inverse demand function. Now you must be wondering, what is the significance of this inverse demand function? Yes, so for that let us move on to the next concept, that is concept number 5, demand curve. Alright, so here you will get to see what is demand curve. Demand curve is a graph of the inverse demand function. Yes, so since demand curve is based on the inverse demand function, that is why here you can see what is the significance of this inverse demand function. So what does it do? It exhibits the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now this might seem very normal to you, but this is a crucial point to be noted. The demand curve is based out of inverse demand function and not the direct demand function. Now because of this, when we plot the demand curve, we take price on the y-axis and quantity on the x-axis, because the dependent variable is taken on the y-axis and quantity, that is the independent variable, is taken on the x-axis. And this is as per the inverse demand function, because as we see that in case of inverse demand function, P becomes a dependent variable and this P is dependent upon this Q. So what difference does it make? It means that you are not taking the price as granted. You will be taking the quantity figures as granted. That is, for a given level of quantity, whatever be the quantity, you take different levels of quantity, and for that quantity you have to compute the prices. And against those prices, when you compute those prices, you plot them on a graph, and on the basis of that graph, when you join them, what you get is a demand curve. So this process flows in this way. Alright, so now how do we interpret this demand curve? Now for that, let us take 2 points here. The first point being now let us mark it as QA and this one is PA. Okay. And we can take another level here as now we can mark this as QB and PB. So this is A and this is B. So what does it mean? That if the quantity to be supplied is QA, then for this quantity, what price the consumers are willing to pay, that is given by the demand curve. So at QA, when the quantity demanded is QA, the price that the consumers are willing to pay is PA. Similarly, when the quantity demanded is QB, then what is the price the consumers are willing to pay? That is PB. So this is how the demand curve exhibits the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Now moving to the third point, that demand curve is negatively sloped. Now before getting into the technical meaning of this, can you think of the literal meaning of slope? What does the word slope mean? The literal meaning of slope is inclination. So what does it mean? So slope tells us how inclined or how slanting the demand curve is. It is not necessary that slope is always negative. Slope can be negative, it can be positive, slope can also be zero, or it can be infinite. If the slope is negative, which is also in the case of demand curve, then it will be downward slanting. If the slope is positive, in that case, the curve will be upward sloping. If the slope is 0, then the curve will not be slanting at all. There will be no inclination. So in that case, it will look horizontal. In this case, we say that the slope is 0. And if the slope is infinite, so in that case, it will be a perpendicular line to the x-axis. That is, we can say it is a vertical curve and the slope will be infinite. So these are the interpretations or the diagrammatic representation of how the slope can be. Now let us get into how to calculate the value of slope mathematically. Slope is calculated as change in price divided by change in quantity demanded. So we can write it as slope is equal to change in price divided by change in quantity demanded. And how do we compute this? Change in P can be computed as difference between PA and PB. So that will be written as PA minus PB divided by change in Q, and that is given as difference between these two, QA and QB. So that is written as QA minus QB. Here the numerator will be a positive value because PA is greater than PB. However, the denominator will be a negative value because QA is less than QB. Hence, ultimately the value of slope will also be negative and hence a downward sloping curve. So we have understood the definition of demand curve. It is how is it a graph of the inverse demand function, that it exhibits the relationship between price and quantity demanded and that it is negatively sloped. One thing is here worth mentioning, that what is the difference between quantity demanded and demand itself. So let us write it down here. Change in demand versus change in quantity demanded. When there is a change in demand due to change in own price of the commodity, then we term it as change in quantity demanded. However, when there is a change in demand due to any factor other than price, it can be consumer's income, it can be price of a related good, it can be taste and preferences of the consumer, or whatever be the factor. If it is different from price, then we say that there is a change in demand. Now, how does it impact the demand curve? Whenever there is a change in quantity demanded, there is a change, we can say that there is a shift along the demand curve. That is, if the price changes from PA to PB, then the shift will be from point A to point B here. And this is called a shift along the demand curve. However, if there is a change in demand due to any factor other than price, let's say consumer's income, in that case, the quantity will of course increase, and if the quantity increases without increasing the price, then this entire demand curve will shift to the right, and we call it a shift in demand curve. So change in quantity demanded leads to a change along the demand curve, whereas change in demand leads to a shift in the demand curve. It can be to the right or it can be to the left as well. This concept of slope can also be linked with concept number 4, that is inverse demand function. If we take a closer look at the inverse demand function, then the coefficient of Qx in the inverse demand function is the slope of the demand curve. In this numerical example here, this is an inverse demand function and the slope of the demand curve is given by this figure here. That is 0.20 is the slope of the demand curve. since this is the coefficient of the Qx in the inverse demand function. We can also find it from the direct demand function as well. From this function here, you will note that the equation of Qx in the inverse demand function here is nothing but the reciprocal of the coefficient of Px in the direct demand function. Yes, so what we need to do is just make the reciprocal of this coefficient of Px and we will get the slope. So we can simply get the slope as 1 by 5, and that will again give us the same figure of 0.20. We can also take this a step further. We have seen that the coefficient of P in a direct demand function is given by this ratio here. So we can also make the reciprocal of this ratio to get the slope. And write it as that the coefficient of Px in the direct demand function is given by change in Q divided by change in P, and which is also written as B. However, the slope is given by change in P divided by change in Q, and in the inverse demand function we see that it becomes 1 by B. So if the coefficient of Px in this example here is 5, so if this is given by 5, then the slope will be simply 1 by 5, and that will give us 0.20. Now be mindful here, because sometimes in the exam you might confuse between this coefficient of Px and the formula for slope of Px. So this is why I have clearly mentioned the difference between the two. Now the questions can confuse you here like this, that slope is option A, coefficient of Px, or is it coefficient of Qx, or is it the reciprocal of coefficient of Qx? Now, what do you think is the correct answer? Is slope the coefficient of Px? No. What is the coefficient of Px? Coefficient of Px is B. Is this the slope? The answer is wrong. We know slope is 1 by B. Yes? So this answer is wrong. Option B, coefficient of Qx. What is the coefficient of Qx? The coefficient of Qx is 1 in the direct demand function. In the direct demand function, what is the coefficient of Qx? This is the coefficient of Qx, that is 1. So unless otherwise stated, what will you assume? That they are talking about the inverse demand function or the direct demand function? Now I have just made up this question right now, so there is an ambiguity here. But if I add here that in inverse demand function, then this answer will become correct. And if this is not mentioned, then obviously this answer will also be wrong. And in the third option, that is reciprocal of coefficient of Qx. Now be very careful to interpret this. What is the coefficient of Qx? Again, since there is no mention of the inverse demand function, you have to assume it to be 1, and the reciprocal of 1 is 1, and the answer will become wrong. But if I add another option, reciprocal of coefficient of Px. Now let me remove this one here. Now try to interpret this. Reciprocal of coefficient of Px. What is coefficient of Px in a direct demand function? That is B. and reciprocal of this b is equal to 1 by b, and in that case this will be the correct answer. Yes, so what is the crux of this entire discussion? That slope of the demand curve is the reciprocal of the coefficient of, what is this px? Own price, right? So slope is the reciprocal of coefficient of own price. Okay.